On a chilly October night, at exactly 3 a.m., James woke from a deep sleep to a strange sound, a faint, eerie cry of a small child echoing through the haunting silence of the old apartment building. The sound wasn't coming from any of the neighboring apartments. It was coming from the top floor, the 5th floor, a place that had been abandoned for 5 years. James opened his eyes in the darkness, his heart pounding in his chest. Cold sweat trickled down his face despite the biting chill in the air. That sound, a baby's cry, couldn't possibly be real. "I must be dreaming," he muttered, trying to convince himself as he pulled the covers tighter. But the crying was too clear, too piercing, cutting through the walls of his apartment as if it were coming from directly above him. James lived on the 3rd floor of a crumbling building from the 1920s with worn marble stairs and walls stained with years of dampness. The 5th floor, the top floor, had been deserted for years. The only apartment up there belonged to a man who died in a mysterious accident, and no one had dared to live there since. The crying grew louder, more desperate, a heartbreaking wail that tugged at the soul. James sat up in bed, his ears straining to catch every sound. The clock read 3:15 a.m., the witching hour, when everything felt stranger, heavier. Maybe someone moved in up there and we weren't told, he thought, grasping for a logical explanation. But deep down, he knew it wasn't possible. That apartment had been empty for years. The crying continued for a few minutes before stopping abruptly. The silence that followed was worse than the sound itself. James sat frozen, his heart racing, staring at the ceiling. At 4 a.m., the sound returned. This time, it was closer, as if the child had moved down a step or two from the floor above. A strange chill ran through James's body. The air in his apartment felt thick, heavy, with the musty smell of old dirt and something else, something unnatural, like decay trapped in a sealed room. He got out of bed, his legs trembling. Stepping out of his apartment, he stood in the hallway and looked up toward the 5th floor. The darkness up there was impenetrable, the staircase swallowed by shadows. The crying was softer now, almost as if the child was trying to soothe itself, or as if someone was comforting it. "Is anyone there?" James's voice echoed in the empty hallway. No one answered, but the crying paused for a moment, as if whatever was up there had heard him. His heart skipped a beat. The silence was more terrifying than the sound. Seconds stretched into eternity, and then footsteps. Small, quick footsteps running above, darting from room to room in the abandoned apartment. The sound was unmistakable. A child running barefoot across old wooden floors. James bolted back into his apartment, slamming the door shut behind him, his hands shaking as he fumbled with the lock. The footsteps continued overhead, running in circles as if the child were playing or fleeing from something. For the rest of the night, James couldn't sleep. The sounds kept coming, crying, running, and then laughter, the eerie giggle of a small child in the dead of night, coming from an empty apartment. The next day, James woke late, his eyes red-shot from fear and exhaustion. He went downstairs to talk to Frank, the building's caretaker. "Frank, has anyone new moved into the 5th floor?" "5th floor? Kid, what are you talking about? That place has been locked up for 5 years. Who'd want to live in an apartment full of mold and rot?" "But I heard something last night. A child crying." "A child? You heard a child?" He leaned closer, his voice low. "You're not the first to hear it. Others have heard the same thing. The old tenant up there, he had a little boy, about 4 years old. The kid died in that apartment, died crying, and no one came to help him." "How did he die?" "No one knows for sure. They found him dead in his room, alone. His father said he was sick, but people whispered about strange things happening in that apartment. Noises, objects moving on their own. The boy always scared. His father didn't believe him." He paused, and then continued. "Ever since then, anyone who lives in this building hears that sound, especially if they're on the floor right below, like you." James's head spun. "What happens next?" "Most people who hear it don't stay long. Some get too affected." He looked him in the eye. "If you hear it again, kid, don't go up there. Don't ever go up there." The second night. James tried to sleep early, pulling a pillow over his head and turning the TV up loud, anything to drown out the possibility of that sound. But at exactly 3 a.m., it came back. This time, it wasn't just crying, it was a call. "Mommy, Daddy, come here." The voice of a frightened, sad child calling for their parents. It was so clear, no longer muffled like the night before. It felt closer, too close. James ripped the pillow off his head, his heart pounding in his chest. Cold sweat dripped down his back despite the biting chill in the air. That sound, a baby's cry, couldn't possibly be real. He leapt out of bed, cold sweat dripping down his back. Moving cautiously toward the living room door, he peered inside. The room was shrouded in darkness, save for a faint glow from the streetlight outside. "Mommy, Daddy, come here." The voice came from the corner of the room, near an old armchair. James felt an unnatural chill around that spot, and the smell of dampness and decay grew stronger. "Who's there?" His voice trembled. The crying stopped, replaced by a small, innocent laugh, a laugh tinged with sorrow. James saw something, a small shadow near the chair, the shape of a child sitting on the floor. The shadow swayed slightly, as if rocking itself. "Who are you?" The shadow froze. Heavy seconds passed, and then it stood. Slowly, it grew. Too tall, too unnatural. James stumbled back, his heart hammering. The shadow was now the size of a lanky child, moving toward him. "Where's my toy?" The voice was still a child's, but there was something wrong with it, something chilling. James scrambled for the light switch and flicked it on. The room lit up and the shadow vanished. But the cold lingered and the foul smell remained. For the rest of the night, James sat in the corner of the room, the lights blazing, his eyes fixed on the armchair. He couldn't leave the apartment and he couldn't sleep. In the final hours before dawn, he heard another sound. Footsteps, climbing the stairs. Heavy, adult footsteps, rushing toward the 5th floor. Then, silence. A terrifying, oppressive silence. The third day.
James went back to Frank, his face pale and haggard. "Frank, what really happened in that apartment? Tell me the truth." Frank glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "All right, kid. It's not like I told you yesterday. The boy, he didn't die from illness." "What happened?" "His father was a monster. Beat the kid all the time. The boy's mother died, leaving him alone with that man. The kid cried every night, scared and in pain, and his father silenced him with more violence. James's skin prickled. And then, one night, the boy wouldn't stop crying. His father lost it and did something awful. The boy died, and the father claimed he passed in his sleep. But people heard things that night, shouting, screaming. And the father? 2 weeks after the boy died, they found him dead in the same room. Fear was etched on his face, like he'd seen something horrifying. He paused, then added, "Since that night, everyone in this building hears the boy. He's looking for his father, looking to make him pay." James felt his blood run cold. Make him pay? He's not just a lost soul, kid. He's angry. Every year, on the anniversary of his death, he gets stronger. He starts bothering those around him until he finds someone to take his father's place. The third night. James decided he couldn't stay in the apartment that night. He packed a bag and planned to crash at a friend's place. But when he reached the ground floor, Frank was waiting, his face pale with fear. "Where you going, kid?" "I'm staying at a friend's tonight. I can't handle this anymore." Frank shook his head. "That won't help. The boy's got you now. He won't let you go." "What do you mean?" "When he chooses someone, he follows them until he gets what he wants. He looks like his father, same height, same dark hair. He thinks you're him." James's heart froze. "What does that mean?" "It means you're in danger, and it won't stop until—" Frank's voice cut off. At that moment, the building's power went out. The air turned icy, and then the sound came from above. But this time, it wasn't a child's voice. "Daddy, I'm coming for you." A deep, menacing voice, mimicking a child's tone, filled with rage and vengeance. Heavy footsteps began descending the stairs, slow and deliberate, each step echoing with intent. James and Frank stood frozen, paralyzed by fear. The footsteps reached the third floor. In the darkness, they saw a figure on the staircase, a child, but too tall, too distorted. Its eyes glowed faintly red in the shadows. "Are you my daddy, the one who hurt me?" The voice came from the figure, unnatural, like a chorus of voices speaking in unison. James's legs went numb. He couldn't move or speak. The figure descended closer. "My mommy died because of you, and you killed me. Now it's my turn." Frank suddenly shouted, "Run, James, run!" James bolted for the door, but it slammed shut on its own. The window sealed, the power stayed off. He was trapped inside with the thing. The figure reached the ground floor, stepping closer. In the dim light, James saw it clearly. A child, but battered and broken, with bruises and wounds covering its body. Its eyes filled with bloody tears. "You want to run, like I wanted to run?" The child reached out, its small hand with long fingers and blackened nails stretching toward James. In a final moment of clarity, James remembered Frank's words. "The boy wants justice." "I'm not your father. I'm not the one who hurt you." The child paused, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "You're not my daddy?" "No, I'm sorry for what happened to you. I'm sorry your father was so cruel. I'm sorry you suffered that way." For the first time, the child's eyes softened, looking almost human. "Sorry?" "Yes, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what happened to you. You were just a sweet little kid. No one should have hurt you." The child began to cry, real, heartbroken sobs. "I just wanted my daddy to love me. I wanted to play and be happy like other kids." Tears streamed down James's face. "I know, and you deserved that. You deserved to be happy." The child stepped closer, but this time it wasn't frightening. "Can you be my friend?" James looked into its sad eyes. "Of course, I can be your friend." Suddenly, the power came back on, the building lit up, and the child began to fade, becoming more transparent. "Thank you," it whispered, before vanishing completely. The door swung open, and the cold air dissipated. James collapsed on the stairs, trembling from the ordeal. Frank approached. "What happened?" "It's over. It's done." A week later, James returned to his apartment, and things seemed normal. The 5th floor was quiet, no strange sounds, no disturbances. But there was one change. Every day, James found a small toy outside his door. A little car, a ball, something simple. One day, he found a note written in a child's scrawl. "Thank you for being kind to me. I'm with my mommy now, and I'm happy." James smiled and tucked the note into his pocket. He knew the boy had finally found the peace he'd been seeking. But the real ending. A month later, James woke in the middle of the night to the sound of crying. But this time, it wasn't coming from the 5th floor. It was coming from the 2nd floor. A woman's voice, filled with grief and despair. When James looked out his window, he saw Frank standing in the street, staring up at the building, his face ashen with fear. Frank caught his eye and called out, "Kid, this building is full of secrets. That boy was just the beginning." And that's the end of our story for today. But is it really the end? Are there more secrets hiding in this building? If you enjoyed the story and want to uncover the rest of its mysteries, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any new tales. And tonight, before you go to sleep, listen closely to the sounds around you. You might not be alone.